Welcome to today's Explainer. Right out of the gate, we're stepping far away from our normal reality to unpack one of the most unsettling yet incredibly cinematic phenomenons to ever grip the internet's collective subconscious. We're looking at a concept that basically feels like an ultra-realistic horror documentary, one that maps out the abandoned architecture of the mind. It's a world rendered in photorealistic, absolutely inescapable detail. You know what it is. We're talking about the Backrooms, the place you were never, ever meant to find.
Okay, I want you to really put yourself in this exact scenario for a second. Picture this. You're walking through your office. It's just another completely ordinary, incredibly mundane Tuesday. You can feel that steady, cool hum of the air conditioning. You feel the weight of your favorite ceramic coffee cup in your hand. You can hear that cheap, commercial-grade carpet creaking just a little bit beneath your shoes. Absolutely nothing feels unusual. You're grounded. You're safe, wrapped right up in the predictable comfort of a totally normal afternoon.
That is, until your very next step. You put your foot forward, and the floor simply isn't there anymore. But you don't fall. You don't even scream. There's no dramatic Hollywood crash, no sudden rush of wind. The universe just drops your coordinates. You literally glitch right out of reality. The fabric of space tears silently around you, and you wake up somewhere else entirely. Welcome to the Backrooms. You open your eyes, and the immediate assault on your senses is just staggering. You are trapped in this inescapable, endless maze of monochromatic, sickly yellow hallways. Harsh, buzzing fluorescent lights cast these really deep, dramatic shadows across the walls, leaving you absolutely nowhere to hide. The heavy volumetric lighting pushes down on you like a physical weight in this eerie atmosphere. And there's this crushing, absolute silence. No doors, no windows, no way home. The sheer terror here isn't some monster chasing you through a dark forest. It's the environment itself. The environment is the monster, and it just swallowed you whole. But every massive legend has to start somewhere, right? The entirety of this modern lore began with a single, anonymous photograph that dropped onto the web like some kind of cursed artifact. It's an empty room. Sickly yellow walls with hyper-realistic textures of peeling wallpaper. A horribly stained, cheap carpet that literally looks damp to the touch. Flickering lights casting film-grained shadows deep into the corners. Nobody knew where it came from. It was just this high-detail, immersive composition of a forgotten place. Now here is where the story shifts from just a simple, creepy picture into a massive global phenomenon. Millions of people looked at this exact photo, and their primary reaction wasn't actually fear. It wasn't terror. It was familiarity. A really baffled, deeply unsettled familiarity. It was almost as if they'd been there before. People looking at this image felt this impossible, nostalgic dread. It was the uncanny valley brought to real life, a place that was almost real but just utterly devoid of soul. So, to understand how people supposedly end up here, we have to look at the lore the internet built around this image. And it revolves around the concept of noclipping. It's a term originally borrowed from old video games, where a player accidentally walks through a solid wall and just falls right out of the bounds of the game map. But in this legend, it's a terrifying existential tear in the universe. It suggests our reality isn't as solid as we think. Sometimes the world glitches, and a person can no-clip through reality, falling into a forgotten layer beneath our world that simply shouldn't exist, a place where time is completely frozen.
Which brings us to level 0, the lobby. This is where everyone who no-clips begins. Endless, repetitive rooms sprawling out in this slow, cinematic movement. The overwhelming smell of old, damp carpet. And I don't just mean wet, I mean ancient and rotting. The maddening hum of buzzing lights, vibrating not just as a sound, but almost like physical pressure against your eardrums. There's zero natural light, no clocks to measure the passing of time, and absolutely no exits. You could walk for hours, days, or even years, and absolutely nothing would change. It's pure, unrelenting sensory deprivation mixed with some of the most intense claustrophobia imaginable.
But of course, it doesn't stay quiet forever. At first, you might actually think the endless silence is comforting, right? It gives you a second to catch your breath. But then, you hear footsteps, and they are definitely not yours. You pause. Your breathing gets shallow. Something is moving, shifting, pacing, somewhere just beyond the walls. If you look at the lore, it treats survivor accounts almost like heavily redacted, classified case files from a classic analog horror tape or a dark Netflix documentary. The stories claim, with deadpan, eerie sincerity, that you are
absolutely not alone down there. Survivors report unexplainable entities lurking in the dim HDR-rendered shadows. One of the most chilling descriptors found in these files simply reads, "smiling faces hidden in complete darkness." And other accounts? They describe something even worse. Creatures wearing human skin, captured as if by a frantic handheld camera, just brief, terrifying glimpses. But you want to know the absolute most terrifying part about these entities? Nobody truly knows what they are. And the grim reason we don't know is because almost nobody survives long enough to actually describe them in detail.
The crazy part is, level 0 is just the beginning. The lore maps out an endless, rotting labyrinth underneath our reality. It's a slow, cinematic descent deeper and deeper into the unknown. From level 0, you can fall into levels 1 and 2, which are darker, infinitely more industrial, and way more dangerous. Then you hit spaces like the pool rooms, which are these endless, echoing tiled rooms filled with lukewarm water reflecting dim, artificial light, all the way down to a deceptive final layer simply called the end. Let's shift gears for a second and talk about the science of the fear. Let's step back from the supernatural analog horror for a minute and ask the deeper question here. Why does this concept affect us so deeply? Well, if we look at this from a psychological perspective, it actually makes a terrifying amount of sense. Psychologists point out that human brains are deeply, fundamentally disturbed by environments that look completely ordinary but feel inherently wrong. It's like the uncanny valley effect, but applied to architecture. Our brains are hardwired to continuously scan our surroundings for patterns. And when a pattern is just slightly off, like a hallway is way too long or a ceiling is just a bit too low, it triggers massive primal alarm bells in our heads. We start searching desperately for a hidden threat. Which brings us to a very real, highly studied architectural and psychological concept, liminal spaces. These are places caught between one destination and another. Transitional zones, corridors, waiting rooms, stairwells. When you strip the people and the purpose right out of these spaces, time suddenly feels paused. They trigger deeply buried memories, a sharp, unexplainable spike in anxiety, and that strange primal feeling that someone or something is watching you from the periphery of your vision through a highly realistic lens. I guarantee you've experienced this in the real world. Think about it. Have you ever been in an empty school long after hours where the lockers just echo in the dark? Or how about a silent, brightly lit shopping mall at 2 in the morning where the softly playing music still echoes, but the stores are shuttered tight in the shadows? Or a completely deserted hotel hallway stretching out endlessly into the dim light? These real-world examples evoke the exact same psychological dread as the fictional Backrooms. The legend literally just took that universal human feeling and turned it into a physical place. Which brings us to the climax of this entire explainer. Because the single most terrifying aspect of the Backrooms isn't the buzzing lights, it isn't the oppressive infinite architecture, it isn't even the monsters. It's the fact that nobody has ever proven they exist. Yet, despite absolutely zero scientific proof, millions, and I literally mean millions of people across the globe, can look at that original, grainy photo and describe the exact same place. They share the same visceral memory of the yellow walls, the same memory of the oppressive lights, the exact same suffocating feeling of endless rooms. So I really have to ask you, is that just a coincidence? Is it purely the result of a highly connected internet culture creating a massive viral trend? Or is it a shared imagination, a collective psychological glitch in how the human brain processes transitional spaces? Or is it something we've all simply forgotten? A dark ancestral memory buried deep in our DNA of a place we are all desperately trying not to return to. I want you to take what we've talked about today and apply it to your own reality. Tonight, right before you go to sleep, just walk down your hallway. Listen carefully to the familiar, mundane sounds of your house. Feel the safety of your environment. But if the lights suddenly begin to buzz, just a little louder than usual, don't panic, and definitely don't run. And whatever happens next, don't look behind you, because if you do, you just might not ever leave. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Backrooms today. Stay observant out there, and I will see you in the next explainer.